Hello and thank you for joining us here on Rwanda Television. It's a pleasure to have your company tonight, and this is what we have coming up tonight. The Rwanda Cultural Heritage Academy has pointed out that Umuganura, a day to give thanks for plentiful harvests while reflecting on how they can be improved in future. Members of the rice cooperative of Kopriz Nhende in Gatsibo district in the Eastern Province have been so successful at what they do. And in Bugesera district, Agnes Wamahoro, an entrepreneur who does poultry farming, produces biogas from chicken manure and other waste from the chicken coop. Welcome to the news in details. I'm Olive Nete. Now, straight to our news. The Rwanda Cultural Heritage Academy has pointed out that Umuganura, a day to give thanks for plentiful harvests while reflecting on how they can be improved in the future, is important for Rwandans and friends of Rwanda. This is as the country to celebrate the day on the 4th of August.
Umuganura w'uyu mwaka ku rwego rw'igihugu uzizirizwa nyine mu karere ka Rutsiro.
This year's Umuganura will be celebrated in Rutsiro district at the national level, but also at the settlement level and in families across the country, as well as in the private sector and the diaspora. So you understand that it is really all Rwandans, because that festival is part of our heritage given to us by our ancestors. Originally, economic prosperity was measured solely in the agricultural sector. But that, of course, is no longer the case, which is why Umuganura nowadays looks at the performance of other sectors as well, things like ICT, mining, education, really all aspects of society, so much so the festival has now taken on a whole new face. This year, one of our partners, the World Food Organization, will use Umuganura to promote the cultivation of different food crops, be it among the youth or the private sector, and in trade as well, so that grains and other food crops can be given the appropriate attention, and Umuganura is a good time to remind people of their importance.
The venue of the celebrations at the national level will be in Rutsiro district in the Western Province, is among the districts that took the worst of the natural disasters of May had to offer, and officials there are grateful that Umuganura will be held there.
We here in Rutsiro were very happy when we learned that the government had chosen our district to be the venue for the Umuganura celebrations. And we believe it is an important opportunity for us to showcase our agricultural yields of things like maize, potatoes and bananas. We also export tea and coffee. However, our productivity is not limited to just agricultural produce, because we have a very vibrant tourism sector in parks like the Gishwati, Mukura National Park and Biosphere Reserve, as well as on Lake Chivu. We also have a strong mining sector that contributes to the country's construction industry. All of that shows just how active we are here in Rutsiro, and we intend to showcase it to the visitors that will join us on Umuganura Day. There is no doubt that we were severely affected by the natural disasters of May, and we intend to encourage those among us who were not terribly affected to help those who were, and we will make sure it is done in all our settlements. This will be made possible through the efforts of the government, its development partners and local residents who can afford to provide such assistance. We also intend to provide quality planting seeds to farmers so that we can take advantage of the coming planting season to make up for what was lost in May. This will be possible through the performance contracts that will be signed on Umuganura days, so that we can set objectives for ourselves and attain them. This is particularly important in helping families out of poverty through those who are able to work hard with the proper assistance and motivation.
Moving ahead to other matters, members of the rice cooperative of Kopriz Nhende in Gatsibo district in the Eastern Province have been so successful at what they do. They now own a hotel worth more than 400 million Rwandan francs. Details with Serge Nhore.
20 years ago, the cooperative known as Kopriz Nhende had 500 farmers as its members and has steadily been growing ever since. Today it has 3,518 members, 1,231 of them women, and though originally shares in the cooperative were worth just 3,730 Rwandan francs, they are now worth 320,000 Rwandan francs a share. The cooperative now owns a pharmacy, a hotel, and a rearing business that supplies the hotel. Corporalis Nende is also in possession of 8 vehicles and has 108 employees under contract. The cooperative itself is now worth 1.4 billion Rwandan francs.
rero mu by'ukuri tubikora ku buryo bwiza ari nabyo byatumye mu by'ukuri kugeza kuri uyu munsi ubona ibikorwa bya koperative.
In all honesty, we use transparency to make these sorts of achievements. To be able to now own 8 vehicles, some helping with transporting our produce while others serve our hotel. We also rear chickens, as you saw for yourselves. We have a pharmacy and a shop dedicated to serving our members. Also, we have our own maize processing plant, and all those facilities are meant to assist our members on a daily basis. Corporalis Nende is testament to the fact that when properly managed, cooperatives can be a very powerful force of development, and more than 5 million Rwandans are currently members of cooperatives.
In Bugesera district, Agnes Wamahoro, an entrepreneur who does poultry farming, produces biogas from chicken manure and other waste from the chicken coop. Take a look at the details. It's a biogas that results from chicken manure and waste from the chicken coop. It is a project initiated by Agnes Wamahoro, an entrepreneur who usually rears about 2,000 chicken in Bugesera district, Naramba sector in Kanzenze cell. She explains how the biogas is produced. To get the gas, I have to get waste from the coop, let's say like 10 kilograms. Then we put it in the room where we'll process it and make it as porridge. And I have to make sure that nothing goes into the container, such as stones, to avoid its damage. And after getting the porridge, we put it in the designated container. After a certain days in the container, it starts decaying, and that results into gas. She says that this reduced the money she used to spend on buying gas and woods. It's been a year since she started using this biogas. Getting woods is very hard, but also to get them, we have to cut trees, and that is destroying the environment. But also woods are expensive, as well as charcoal, and all of that was cut off due to this biogas. And this also helps us to cook faster. Whenever you get home from work, you can cook. She has a plan to work with technicians so that the gas from the biogas can be put into containers and be sold, or even be stored in containers because they sometimes produce it in big quantity. This project of biogas that results from chicken manure is additional to another project of biogas from cow dung that was not able to push through because most of the containers were damaged and it wasn't effective enough. That is a good initiative. Now moving ahead in Geramana sector in Rango district, Stephen Bahishahe of 99 years of age and Generose Nyirandutiye of 93 years have been married for 70 years. They say that the secret to their long-lasting marriage is praying and working hard. Take a look. Bahishahe, an old man with his wife Nyirandutiye, are at their home. The husband is resting while his wife is cooking. When you look at both of them in their old age, you would wish to know when they got married. The old man Bahishahe see that they were the last people to do the traditional wedding where they used to carry the bride in a mat.
We are the last people in our generation that held a wedding by carrying the bride in a mat. They refused to bring her during the night, but she was brought early in the morning. They brought her in the mat in the morning, and when I went to court her, I found her at her home. Both of them do not remember the hour of their marriage. The husband is about to get 100 years, while the woman has 93 years old. But in their perspective, considering when they gave birth to their firstborn, they've been married for more than 70 years. We pray together every time we are about to share a meal. We also work. My wife was a hard worker and so was I. And we would cultivate and harvest our crops with no conflict between us. And we had 11 children together. In the 70 years they've been living together, they have been loyal to each other and had no conflict. They advised the young generation who wants to marry. I would advise them by telling them that if they do not work hard, their marriage won't last long. If they do not be patient with all the things that are currently around, it won't last long. They should learn to be patient. What else can they do? Neighbors of this family testifies that it is an exemplary one. The local authorities of their village always use their example in teaching other residents. As a leader in my village, I usually go to them and seek advice because I encounter a number of people with family disputes, and I try to tell them to emulate this couple.
Even though I didn't manage to live with my husband, I learned a lot from them. They gave me a good example, and I would love to share that to other people who are younger than me. The family of Stephen Mahishahe and Generals Nyirandutiye is celebrating 70 years of marriage, while in various other parts, divorces are rising. According to the National Institute of Statistics, since 2018, divorce cases increased from 1,311 to 8,941. Moving ahead, those engaged in the manufacture of leather products have again called for the establishment of a leather processing plant because importing the material is very expensive. Details with Serge Nore.
Between 120 and 150 cows are slaughtered every day in the modern slaughterhouse at Nyabugogo, and on weekends and holidays that figure can be as high as 400. Out of the 150 or so animal hides we obtain daily, an average of only 2 are ruined, which means farmers play their part in ensuring that the hides are not damaged while the animals are still alive, and we too make sure not to damage them when slaughtering the cattle. We have trained our people on how to properly handle the animal skin so that they can still be used to make leather later. Animal skins from other domestic animals like goats and sheep are also used to make leather, all of which are plentiful in Rwanda, yet surprisingly there is not a single tannery operational countrywide. It has now been 13 years since the last tannery was operational, and we have plenty of animal hides here in Rwanda and modern slaughterhouses. Now we are forced to sell our animal hides very cheaply for export, between 100 and 150 Rwandan francs per kilo. Compare that to the 1,300 Rwandan francs we used to get per kilo when they were processed here in the country, and you understand why we need our own tannery. After being processed abroad, the leather imported is so expensive those engaged in the production of products made from the material are constantly lamenting. Officials in the Ministry of Trade and Industry say efforts are underway to once again open up leather processing plants in the country. We are currently looking for investors willing to partner with us to establish such processing plants, but it must go hand in hand with the establishment of a tannery. The tannery will be based in Kamawi, a sector of Bugesera district, and we are currently looking for the funds to start a preliminary feasibility study for it. In April last year, the President of the Republic instructed the concerned authorities to speed up the establishment of leather processing plants in the country.
Now moving ahead, psychologists and other behavior specialists in Rwanda are warning people against gambling addictions, pointing out that they usually go hand in hand with drug abuse, domestic violence, and financial ruin.
Just how easy it is to lose money when gambling is usually not something many people pay attention to until it is too late, that is.
At
Nyabugogo, I saw a person who had apparently just won 1 million Rwandan francs, so I took the money my wife had given me to deposit in her account, 60,000 Rwandan francs in total, and tried my luck. I kept feeding the machine banknotes and losing until I had just 2,000 Rwandan francs left. I did not know how I would explain it to my wife, so I decided to get drunk, being the first time I'd ever consumed alcohol. I could not face my wife sober. Eventually, I had to borrow from a friend to be able to deposit the money and get myself out of the mess with the wife. I know a guy who used to be a mobile money agent, and he gambled away his entire capital, 500,000 Rwandan francs in total, and ended up going back to the village empty-handed. He would bet on football games, sometimes winning, but ultimately they took everything he had. My advice to other taxi motorcyclists is to be careful with gambling, things like betting on games, because you could easily lose a whole day's work in a heartbeat. I know several colleagues of mine who have had that happen to them. Behavioral specialists are warning that the problem may be far worse than most realize.
N'ubushakashatsi twakoreye muri Musanze twinjira mu ma centre akorerwamo ibyo bintu by'imikino.
We carried out research in Musanze and went to gambling centers, and we interviewed 104 people. As many as 44% of them were addicted to gambling, with another 52% at risk of developing a gambling problem. We also found a high correlation between gambling, alcoholism, drug addiction, insomnia, and domestic violence.
Ibibazo byo mu miryango ko bifitanye isano cyane ya hafi.
Gambling was legalized in Rwanda back in 2012, and the industry now has 21 companies. Officials in the Ministry of Trade and Industry say activities in the country's gambling industry are closely monitored. We do our best to put in place rules and regulations to ensure that the industry does not go astray, and closely monitor how the betting services are provided so as to minimize the risk of addiction. We also check to ensure that the services they provide are at a level that is internationally accepted. Figures from the German online platform specialized in data gathering and visualization, Statista, indicate that more than 4 million Rwandans will be engaged in gambling by 2027.
Thank you, Serge. Now, moving ahead, Modeste Muhire has published a book meant to give gratitude to those who helped him to get a decent education.
From life as a refugee in different camps in Tanzania to becoming the human resource manager at Rwanda's central bank, the book, A Tale of Gratitude, tells of Modeste Muhire's difficult past, and he intends to use its proceeds to help children in vulnerable families to get a decent education.
This book purpose is also to mobilize funds, because all profit from this book will be channeled to support disadvantaged children. And so in the long term, we are going to reach out to people who are willing to support so that they can also come and join the cause of supporting children that might be going through the kind of life that I went through, which is demonstrated in my book. So as a way to pay back at the community. The profits from this book, I committed as a personal decision to use for supporting children that are disadvantaged, but also we want to be legally acceptable to do that. So we can reach outside, we can reach to whoever wants support, and so we are registering a charity foundation through RGB. We expect soon to have a formal certificate to do that one, so the cause can multiply to beyond even Rwanda.
Those who have read the book say it teaches a powerful lesson on the importance of true gratitude.
The moral lesson is living a life of gratitude, appreciating every hand that someone has given you in their lives, and the other one is being positivity, living in a position or a posture where you are grateful for each and everything that you pass through, and having those eyes that can see positivity all through.
The lesson I learned from Modesta's book is to as Bahati to write my own story, because when you read Modesta's story, it reflects your own story. You know, when we are coming back from refugee, how the government sponsored us to get education, how various people supported us in one way or another. So that's the major lesson I learned from Modesta's book.
Through the 247-page book, the 45-year-old Modeste Muhire recounts how, after spending the first 12 years of his life in a refugee camp in Tanzania, he came back to Rwanda and was assisted to get an education by the government all the way through university.
On behalf of the entire news production team, thank you for staying loyal to Rwanda Television. See you next.